In Pocantico Hills, New York, 25 miles north of Manhattan, there is a gate. Behind the gate, a road curves through landscaped forest, crosses stone bridges, climbs through meadows, and disappears into 3,400 acres of private land that has been in the hands of a single family for over a century. The road is paved, it is maintained, it is patrolled, and if you try to walk on it, security will stop you before you reach the first bend. The road belongs to the Rockefellers. It is part of a network so extensive that it constitutes a private transportation system built across multiple properties, spanning 3 states, totaling well over 100 miles. These roads were designed, financed, and constructed by the wealthiest family in modern American history. They were built to the highest engineering standards of their era. They were landscaped by some of the finest designers in the country, and they were closed, from the day they were finished, to the machine that the Rockefeller fortune was built to fuel, the automobile. The family that made its money selling gasoline built roads that banned cars. And the deeper I went into why, the more I found something that nobody talks about. Not what the roads look like, what they were for, and what the family that built them understood about the world they were creating while they were busy creating it. Start with the first network, because the first network tells you this wasn't a hobby, it was a conviction. John D. Rockefeller Sr., founder of Standard Oil, the man who controlled 90% of America's oil refining at the height of his power, began building carriage roads on his estate in Cleveland, Ohio, in the 1880s. Not public roads, private ones. Roads designed exclusively for horses and carriages, groomed, graded, and maintained with the same obsessive precision he applied to his refineries. When he purchased the Pocantico Hills property in New York's Hudson Valley in the 1890s, he replicated the system at larger scale. Miles of carriage roads winding through forests and meadows, connecting houses and gardens and lookout points, engineered with gentle grades that were never too steep for a horse-drawn vehicle. His son, John D. Rockefeller Jr., inherited the obsession, and he took it further than anyone thought possible. Beginning in 1913 on Mount Desert Island off the coast of Maine, Rockefeller Jr. embarked on a construction project that would last 27 years and produce one of the most extraordinary road systems in the United States. 57 miles of carriage roads, carved through the granite mountains and coastal forests of what is now Acadia National Park. 16 stone-faced bridges, each one unique, each designed by Rockefeller himself in collaboration with the architect Wells Bosworth, each built from granite quarried on the island. Roads graded to precisely the right angle for a horse and carriage, wide enough for 2 carriages to pass, lined with hand-placed native vegetation routed to capture views that Rockefeller personally scouted on horseback. He supervised the work himself. He learned the names of the laborers. He adjusted the alignment of individual curves to improve a sightline. He corresponded with the National Park Service about the height at which a road should pass above Eagle Lake to provide the most pleasing view, arguing that looking down into the water from a slight elevation was more attractive than passing at the water's level. He built roads the way other men wrote symphonies, and every road he built was closed to automobiles. This raises a simple but critical question. The Rockefeller fortune was built on oil. Oil powered the automobile. The automobile was the single greatest driver of petroleum demand in the 20th century. Every gallon of gasoline burned in every car on every road in America put money in the Rockefeller accounts. Why would the family that profited most from the automobile age build the most extensive private road network in the country and ban the automobile from every inch of it? The official explanation is personal preference. Rockefeller Jr. was an experienced horseman. He loved carriage driving. He found automobiles noisy and intrusive. On Mount Desert Island, the introduction of cars had been a contentious issue since 1905, when Maine legislators banned them from the island at the urging of the wealthy summer residents. The locals, who wanted automobiles for practical transportation, fought back. By 1915, automobiles were allowed on the island's public roads, and Rockefeller, rather than fighting the car on public roads, built his own roads where the car would never go. That explanation is true. It's also inadequate, because here's what it doesn't account for. Rockefeller didn't build one road. He built a system, 57 miles in Maine alone, dozens more at Pocantico Hills, additional roads in Cleveland, 3 separate properties, 3 separate states, 3 separate decades of continuous construction, a family project spanning 2 generations. This wasn't a rich man's hobby. This was infrastructure, private, parallel, permanent infrastructure designed to enable a form of movement through the landscape that the automobile was in the process of destroying. As if they were following instructions they didn't fully understand. Now look at how the roads were built, because the engineering tells you what the roads were actually for. The carriage roads at Acadia are what road historians call broken stone roads. The surface is composed of multiple layers, a base of large stones, a middle layer of smaller crushed stone, and a fine gravel top dressing, compacted and graded to shed water naturally without modern drainage systems. The roads follow the contours of the land rather than cutting through them. They curve where the terrain curves. They rise where the mountain rises. They were built to move with the landscape rather than against it. An automobile road does the opposite. An automobile road cuts through the landscape. It blasts through ridgelines. It fills valleys. It straightens curves. It imposes a geometry of speed and efficiency on terrain that was not designed for speed or efficiency. An automobile road is an argument with the land. A carriage road is a conversation with it. Rockefeller understood the difference. His letters to the National Park Service make this explicit. He wrote about the road's relationship to the scenery, about how a road should reveal and conceal views in sequence, about the experience of moving through a landscape at a pace that allows the body to register what the eyes are seeing. A carriage moves at 4 to 8 miles per hour. At that speed, you see individual trees. You hear water before you see the stream the bridge crosses. You smell the forest. You feel the grade change in the horse's stride. The experience is sensory, bodily, integrated with the landscape in a way that driving a car at 40 miles per hour eliminates entirely. The evidence suggests something much larger than personal preference, because here's the timeline nobody lays out in sequence. In 1908, Henry Ford introduced the Model T. By 1927, 15 million had been sold. The American landscape was being remade at unprecedented speed. Roads were being paved, widened, straightened, rerouted to accommodate the automobile. The old carriage paths, the dirt roads, the trails that had connected communities at the pace of a walking horse were being obliterated. The entire physical infrastructure of American movement was being torn up and rebuilt around a machine that the Rockefeller fortune had made possible. And during precisely this period, at the exact historical moment when the automobile was destroying every carriage road in the country, John D. Rockefeller Jr. was spending millions of dollars building new ones. He was constructing, at enormous expense, exactly the kind of road that the automobile age was making extinct. He was preserving, in granite and gravel, a form of movement through the world that his own family's product was eliminating everywhere else. The silence was deafening. I want to pause here and ask something that isn't usually asked. What did Rockefeller know? Because this was not a man who acted on whim. This was a man who managed one of the largest fortunes in human history with a precision that bordered on compulsion. He accounted for every expenditure. He documented every decision. He didn't spend 27 years building 57 miles of road on a Maine island because he liked horses. He built them because he understood something about what the automobile was going to do to the American landscape and to the American experience of being in the world. And he built a private alternative, not for everyone, for himself, for his family, for his friends. He built roads for a world he knew was ending, and he made sure the new world, the automobile world, the world his family's oil had created, could never touch them. Now look at what he did with the roads when he was finished. Because this is the detail that changed everything I thought this story was about. He gave them away. In the 1930s and 1940s, Rockefeller donated the Acadia carriage roads to the National Park Service. He attached one condition: the roads would never be opened to motor vehicles. Not during his lifetime, not after his death. Never. The gift was permanent. The restriction was absolute. 57 miles of the finest carriage roads ever built in America, donated to the public, with a legal covenant ensuring that the automobile would never set wheel on them. The roads are still there. You can walk them. You can bicycle them. You can ride a horse on them. You can cross-country ski them in winter. But you cannot drive on them. You will never be able to drive on them. The restriction is held since the 1930s and shows no sign of being lifted. Rockefeller built a parallel infrastructure, a shadow road system, a network designed for a speed and a sensory experience that the automobile makes impossible. And then he locked the automobile out permanently. The deeper I went, the more I found that the Rockefeller road networks weren't an anomaly. They were a confession. The family that sold the fuel that powered the destruction of every carriage road in America built private carriage roads and made them permanent. The family that profited more than any other from the automobile age created enclaves where the automobile could never go. The family that made its fortune from speed built roads designed for slowness. At Pocantico Hills, the pattern is even more explicit. The estate's core, known as the Park, is a 250-acre gated compound where the Rockefeller family lived for 4 generations. The carriage road network winds through the larger 3,400-acre estate, connecting Kykwit, the family's neo-Georgian mansion, to gardens, lookout points, and the remnants of William Rockefeller's Rockwood Hall, a 204-room mansion that was demolished in 1942. The roads are still there. The mansion is gone. The roads outlasted the building they served. And even today, you cannot access the roads of Pocantico Hills freely. The inner estate is managed by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Visitors must report to a visitor center in Sleepy Hollow, receive a physical lanyard, and board a shuttle bus. You cannot walk to Kykwit. You cannot drive to Kykwit. If you attempt to access the private roads on foot, security will turn you around. The roads exist. They are maintained. They are beautiful. And they are not for you. The pattern repeats with unsettling precision. 3 properties. 3 states. Ohio, New York, Maine. Private road networks built across 2 generations, spanning decades of construction, totaling over 100 miles. Every road built to carriage specifications. Every road closed to automobiles. Every road maintained, in some cases for over a century, in a condition that most public roads in America cannot match. This raises a simple but critical question. What do the Rockefellers know about roads that the rest of the country doesn't? Not about pavement, not about engineering, about what a road does to the person who uses it, about the difference between moving through a landscape at 4 miles an hour and moving through it at 60. About what is lost when the body is sealed inside a metal box and hurled through terrain so fast that the eyes can't focus on what's passing. About the experience of being in a place versus the experience of getting through a place. The Rockefellers sold the world the technology that turned every journey into throughput, every road into a corridor, every landscape into a blur between destinations. And then they built, for themselves, and eventually for the public, roads where the old relationship between the body and the land was preserved, roads where you move slowly enough to see, to hear, to smell, to feel the grade change under your feet, to arrive not at a destination but inside the journey itself. I don't have a complete theory. I have a question that multiplies the deeper I look. Why did the family that profited most from the automobile spend 3 decades building roads that banned it? Why did they construct a parallel infrastructure for a mode of movement their own product was making extinct? Why did they attach a permanent, irrevocable restriction, ensuring the automobile could never access the roads they built? Why did they maintain, at enormous private expense, a network of roads designed for a speed and a sensory experience that the world they created no longer values? And the question underneath all the others. The one that sits in the gravel of a carriage road on Mount Desert Island, where the granite bridges still stand after a century and the automobile has never touched the surface. Did the Rockefellers build these roads because they loved horses? Or did they build them because they understood, better than anyone else on earth, what the automobile was about to take away? And they wanted to make sure that somewhere, behind a gate, on a private road, in a national park with a legal covenant that would outlast every car ever built, the thing that was being taken would survive. I'll leave you with this. Somewhere in Maine, there is a road you can walk but never drive. It was built by the richest family in America. It was built during the decades when the automobile was destroying every similar road in the country. It was built with the fortune that the automobile generated, and it was sealed permanently against the machine that paid for it. The family that sold the world gasoline built roads where gasoline would never burn, and they made sure those roads would last forever. Ask yourself what they knew that they weren't saying.